Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hammer Podcast. Today is October 11th, 2020, and I am speaking with Mike. Mike went to the Agape boarding school. It was a boarding school in that day. Now it's the Agape Boys Ranch from 96 to 98. So we're going to have a little discussion with Mike. And Mike, it's good to have you on the podcast. And go ahead and, it's all yours, man. Floor's yours.
Well, I certainly appreciate you having me tonight, and it's a good thing, I think, to talk about this stuff. So I'm probably, as far as the people that are involved in talking about this, I'm probably one of the older ones, having gotten there in the mid-'90s when most of the people I see talking about this, just got out within the last 5 years. So either I hold on to things for too long, or it just had that big of an impact. But like a lot of the guys that went to this school in Missouri, I was raised in a Christian home. It was a very patriarchal type of a setup. Lots of church, lots of guilt for everything, and I was adopted into this family when I was about 2 years old. So I didn't look or act like any of the rest of them. I had four younger siblings, and my folks were pretty strict, and I wasn't really okay with that kind of lifestyle. I had too many questions, we'll say, which really fucks up the whole faith thing. And so I asked my questions, and I didn't get the answers I needed. And so as time went on, as I got to be a preteen, teenager, I was smoking cigarettes at the bus stop and smoking some weed on the weekends, and eventually smoking weed at school. And I know these sound like really, really bad, multiple year felonies here, but this was what was considered to be really bad behavior in my family.
Mike, it was the 90s.
It was the 90s, man.
Yeah.
Pop everywhere. I was telling my kid the other day, who's just graduated from high school, that's how old I am anymore. And I said, I didn't have to worry about kids selling prescription medicine at high school, man. I just wanted to buy a blunt. Just let me buy a blunt. Or fuck it, let me buy a dime bag and I'll buy my own blunt wrapper and I'll make it work. That was it. Maybe some shrooms, maybe a little LSD.
Yeah.
But really, started doing poorly in school, not because I wasn't able to do the schoolwork, but I just didn't want to be there, and I didn't want to be at home either. And my parents actually, their fix for everything was solitary, basically. So strip your room of everything fun, books, magazines. I never had a TV in there or anything, but they'd basically strip the room out, and I spent a whole summer there, the summer before I went to Agape. Literally, I was able to get up in the morning, have breakfast, use the bathroom. If I wasn't working outside doing a project for my dad, I was stuck in my room. And that was summer.
Was your family independent fundamental Baptists, or?
No. Just kind of a mismatch of a bunch of different kind of, just very conservative, very evangelical.
Evangelical, okay.
Very heavy-handed, a lot of corporal punishment, things like that. So after spending this 3-month period in my room, I went back to school, and I just said, "Fuck it, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to stay out whenever I want. The worst thing they could do to me is lock me in my room." So. I was doing poorly in school, and I wasn't exactly hanging with the best kids, but I just needed a little bit of structure and maybe a little bit of love. I had some issues with, as you grow up, I'm different than my brothers and sisters who aren't adopted, and I can imagine for my parents, now being a parent myself, that it had to be hard to adopt a kid, and then you have your own kids, and it's like, okay, well, obviously you're going to treat those kids differently, even in the best of situations. And This was not the situation. So dealt with that. That was a driving factor in me doing some of this stuff. So at any rate, I get done. I get all F's except for one D, and in my sophomore year. And they pull me in the office and they go, "Hey, you got all F's except for this class. You got a D. I said, well, shit, I should have tried harder. I could have gotten an F in all my classes.
Yeah.
My dad will tell that story to this day. You know, this is fucking 30 years ago, and he'll tell this story still.
Yeah.
Or 25 years or whatever it is. And so the next summer after sophomore year, you know, are we going to send you to a private school, or are we going to send you back to public school? I'm like, I don't care what you do. Doesn't matter. So they came up to me about a week before we left, and they said, hey, you know, we're gonna take a family trip. We're gonna go out west. I said, cool. I'd like to go out west. I haven't been past Indiana my whole life, you know, as far as going out that direction.
Right.
Go to Florida and stuff, you know. So I hadn't been west of the Mississippi basically, and so they said, we're gonna take this family trip. So, you know, pack your shit, you know, get your stuff together. And Mom had this big duffel bag that was just full of other stuff that it wasn't any of ours. So I was like, all right, whatever, and threw it in the car, and we pile in the van, and off we go. And, you know, we're driving, we stay overnight, and I think it was around St. Louis. The boarding school's another, I think, 3 or 4 hours from there. We're driving out, we're getting on these back-ass country roads, and I'm just like, hey, where are we going? Oh, you know, we're just going to see a couple. Sure enough, we pull into Stockton, pull into the gates, pull into the boarding school, and I knew I was fucked at that point. Knew it. I'm like, well, there's no other. Who the fuck else are they bringing to a boarding school? Not my, you know, what the hell, a 6-year-old brother at the time, my little one, and certainly not any of my sisters. It was a boys' boarding school, so right. You know, pretty smart kid, you know. So we pull in, and that was pretty much it. It was they threw the duffel bag out, took my stuff that I had packed back with them, and said, you live here now, and we'll come back and get you when you graduate. Have a nice life. And yeah, that was kind of, I almost kind of expected that, though, you know. I almost kind of expected something like that, so that wasn't the hard part. The hard part's when they turn you over to the school, and the school just, their whole point, it's fucked up, because you think, okay, we would want to move as many kids through the program as we can quickly so that they can graduate and get out of here and move on with their lives.
Right.
And in reality, it's let's see how long we can keep the kid here, because the longer they keep you, the more they extract out of the family. So.
And I've always said it's all about the money. I say this in every podcast. It's not about teaching you discipline. It's not about saving your soul. It's about how much money can I sap out of your bank account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then of course in Cedar County, Missouri, there's no regulation, almost zero regulation on these kind of operations. So, you know, when they moved from Othello, Washington, which they had only moved 2 years before. Yeah. I had come to Missouri. They were in Washington for several years before that. So the original class of students started in 1990. So by the time I got there, there was only 2 remaining students that were now staff members, but they were from actually 3, and Ben left. But when they came out, I mean, literally that was the original class of kids that had gone through the program.
Okay.
And so when I get out here, so they have a system, right? They bring you in, and they put you, at least in my time, they do it differently now, I've heard, but in my time, they put you with a buddy. So they take all your shit. They give you a yellow shirt. They give you a pair of jeans, or you had brought a pair of jeans with you they had to be Wranglers, I remember, and I fucking hated Wranglers. This is in the times of Jenko jeans and you know, big Grizzlies and stuff. So I was used to wearing baggy ass clothes, and here I am wearing these fucking cowboy Strangler jeans, you know.
The ones that go up to your chest, the tie Wranglers.
Yeah, exactly. And you better keep it up that high and tuck your stupid shirt in, you know. The t-shirt. Who tucks a t-shirt in? But they put you in a yellow shirt, and then they put you with a kid in a burgundy shirt. So it goes yellow, burgundy, and then green for staff. They had light green, which was full-time staff, and they had dark green, which was the junior staff, kids that were still in the program but had some staff privileges. That causes some issues, as you'll see. But basically, you go into the program, you're a new kid, you're in a yellow shirt. They put you with a student who's already been in a yellow shirt and has now earned a burgundy shirt. And they basically, you have to be within 3 feet of them at all times. If they're taking a piss, you're in there with them. If they don't want to play basketball and you do, too bad. If they want to play basketball and you don't, too bad.
Yeah.
it later changed that to where you had to sit with your arm around the basketball pole while your buddy played. But they used to make you play along with them, which is fine unless you're not any good, and then they just beat the shit out of you the whole time. So that was fun. Yeah. But I remember it was very interesting to me, the demeanor. So the school was charging, I think, $2,000 a month, if I'm not mistaken, $1,500 to $2,000 a month, I think is what they were charging. And so Brian, and he's been in the paper, so I think, anyway, the owner's son, who's now back, he did a very good job of showing my parents how great the facility was. And to be honest with you, at the time, it was 4 cabins, like 4 Boy Scout cabins.
Right.
An outdoor shower room. It was enclosed, but you had to walk to it. It wasn't connected to anything. And then you had an outdoor washer and dryer facility. You had a common area with a kitchen, so that was the dining hall, and then you converted it to the chapel for chapel every night in church. And then you had the school, which is, just long lines of segmented desks. And that was it. I think we had a basketball court at the time, and we had lots of fields. All the fields that you see there today used to just be fields with nothing but rocks in them. More rocks than the rockiest ground I've ever seen in my life. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but they bring you into the program and they put you with this buddy, and the buddy can do whatever he wants to you. Okay. At the time, in fact, Brian would come by and say, "Hey, how come he's not doing push-ups? How come you're not making him do something he doesn't want to do?" Well, he didn't do anything. He's following the rules. I don't care. He needs to feel it while he's here. And he would goad them into, okay, fine, fuck it, give me 25 push-ups just because they could. I think they could give 25 at a time. But there was buddies who would give their guys, they give them 25, they stand back up, give them another 25, and they just do that for hours. Just fuck with them because they could, because that was the culture there. The higher up you are on the food chain, the more pain you can dispense.
When Jay came on the podcast the other day, he called that Brian guy. He called him a sadistic weirdo. The guy took absolute pleasure in making these kids miserable.
Yeah, no, he liked it. That's the thing. He loved it.
A sadist, yes.
His temper was. So he had the Jurassic elbow, and he had this weird, a normal elbow comes up and you got a little bit of a bump.
Right.
His had almost like a hook on it. It was like an elongated section of elbow. Anybody who's seen it will probably laugh at that because it's just what it was called. But man, he'd get you with that, and I mean that was his favorite move. Just shock you right under the jaw with that, right in the side, and knock you down. I mean, I was 16. I'm a big guy, but I wasn't fighting in school. I'd rather, smoke dope and hang out. I didn't want to. It wasn't in, Which brings another point up. Half of the guys, I don't know if it's like this anymore, but fully half of the guys we had there they'd come out of gangs. A lot of these kids came from L.A. They came from, they came from. We had a couple kids from the Compton area. We had a lot of kids, Laotian descent, who were from some of the projects in L.A. We had a lot of kids from California, and a lot of those kids were literally certified gang members before they got there. So you had kids like me who were from Christian homes, that thought they were doing their thing. You had kids that were wards of the state that were sent there. You had kids that were in diversionary programs to keep them out of prison. So instead of sending the kid to prison, they send them to boarding school. So it's kind of the old adage, let's mix up the petty thieves with the serial killers and see what happens. So you had a lot of kids, you had kids, preying on younger kids. You had kids preying on kids that were less advantaged than them as far as how the caste system goes.
Right. I mean, it's almost like having a prison and you put the child molesters with the murderers.
Right.
You already know what's going to happen.
Right.
The murderers are going to go after them and vice versa. It's going to be a bloodbath.
Right. And they wouldn't let you talk about it. I mean, I went on no talking immediately because I told Brian to go fuck himself when I got there. And after he knocked me to the ground, they give you a red wristband. And I wore that thing for 3 months. You weren't allowed to talk to anybody. You were speak only when spoken to. Your buddy could talk to you and tell you what to do, but you weren't allowed to say anything back. You could raise your hand. I think it was Yeah, you had to raise your hand to be seen, and they could just sit there and ignore you for 15, 20 minutes. You know, you want to ask to go to the bathroom, they're just, whatever, you're on no talking, fuck off. You know,
Right.
and they could, and there was a lot of nuance to the. It was all about power. It's a power system, and the people at the top held all the power, and they deputized the people under them in descending order of color, basically, as far as what your shirt color was, determined everything.
Right.
After I left, they instituted a boot camp level, which was an orange shirt. So that's even below the yellow shirt kids. So it's just a continuous, down pressure of power dispersal, we'll say. So I think that the worst part for me was they literally tell you nothing. It's almost like, and I joined the Marines after I left, and I went through that whole situation. That was easy because I was already used to being thrown into a situation I had no control over. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, and I was just reactionary. Everything I did was just reacting based upon what was happening right then. So I was very well suited to join the military after this because I already didn't ask any questions, after you get through. So they just kind of throw you in, and your buddy is literally, their whole job is just to guide you into this program and show you how things are done and do it as dickishly as possible.
So
some buddies were cool. My first buddy was actually okay. He wasn't too much of a dick. My second buddy was an absolute. He was horrible, and that's why they put me with him because Matt was too nice.
He was a real douchebag, huh?
Yeah, the second one was, and he was a certified gang member. He came out of the projects in L.A. I'm a fucking, I was a middle class white kid from the suburbs in Ohio, and you throw me in with somebody who's basically was running a corner for a while before he came in. That's a completely different world.
Yeah.
So maybe it wasn't him that was a dick. Maybe it was just me that I didn't have the life understanding at that point,
Well, basically, you had to figure stuff out on your own. I mean, I'm sure your buddy would tell you things, but he wouldn't tell you everything because he wanted you to get into trouble so they can beat the shit out of you.
Right. Because then it's free game. He doesn't get in trouble, so he gets two issues. He gets a better standing with the staff members, and he gets to do whatever the hell he wants. So that was interesting, So I probably spent yellow shirt, new kid status. I was on no talking for 3 months, so it was probably a good it was between 6 and 9 months because they'd have these little presentations. Brian would come up in front of the school and he'd have a box, a big, packaging box, and he'd open it up and he'd pull out, red, white, and blue colored shirts, which were your school shirts. If you're a yellow shirt, you wear a yellow shirt for everything. If you wear a burgundy shirt, like a t-shirt, then when you go to school, you wear red, white, and blue, at least at the time. And when you got your red, white, and blue shirts, that was you not having to have a buddy anymore. And I still remember that day because he called me up and he goes, even though I think, I don't think you're going to make it more than a week without a buddy because you're an idiot or something like that, here's your shirts, You've reached the maximum allowed time on new kid status or some garbage like that.
Yeah.
From that point, I was free. I could do what I wanted. And the school, if you want to call it that, there's no teachers. There are basically a bunch of hall monitors with green shirts that walk around and allow you to go to the bathroom or allow you to go score your work because you work in these individual books. And there's 12 books per grade. So if you're taking 12th grade English, you're going to take 12 little books. And at the end, you're going to take a final test. And if you pass, then you pass the grade. Or you pass that particular class.
Right.
So once I figured out that, wait a minute, I don't get to leave until I graduate. And I can work on paces whenever I want because I can take them from school and just finish them. So I'd finish a pace every day right before the end of the day, and I'd go get 5 more paces. I'd finish 5 classes worth of paces, pace number 3, let's say. And I'd go grab all the number 4s for all my classes, and I'd spend the rest of the evening working on all of them. Me and a couple other guys, there's a guy, David P., that he and I worked together quite well because he struggled with English and etymology and more of the spoken word and reading type of stuff, but he excelled in math and science, which I kind of struggled with a little bit. So we helped each other out.
Yeah.
But that's all I did. I mean, literally for the rest of the, the rest of the year and 3 months, I literally just worked, and I did a little over 2 years of school credit-wise in 1 year, because I just worked on paces constantly.
And you basically just wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get the hell out of here. I don't want to be here. Yeah, okay, did I learn a couple things about self-discipline? Did I learn a few things about, um, maybe a little motivation and stuff? Yeah, okay, I probably picked up a few things, but who doesn't as they grow? I spent 3 fucking birthdays in this place. You grow up after a while. You start, 15, you're stupid.
Right.
18, you're stupid, but not quite as stupid, So you just kind of, there's a natural progression there. So I don't credit the school with a lot of that.
One thing I can say that you did learn is you learned how evil religion can be.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We went, let's see, there was chapel every night for an hour. Then on Sunday, you had Wednesday night church also, and chapel Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Then you had Sunday school on Sunday morning. You had church at 10 or 11 or whatever it was, and then you went back and had a third service for night church on Sunday. So Sunday, you were in 3 hours of church. Every other night of the week, it was at least an hour. And if they had a guest evangelist or guest preacher come in, yeah, you could you spend 2 hours a day in chapel. Every single night was, well, you're a piece of garbage sinner, and you're going to go to hell unless you come up and confess your sins and accept Christ as your Savior every single night. So I counted. I did well over 900 church services, and 900 times was told I was a piece of garbage and come to the front. I mean, that ruined me in religion. I said, I'm done. I'm done. I don't care. Send me to hell. I don't care. I don't want to do this. This is terrible.
I might as well just, I'd rather get a root canal and just sit through another service again.
And that was the thing. I actually did the math, and I said, okay, this actually clears me for 23 years of a normal person's church, which is going once a week.
Right.
So I said, the next 23 years, I won't go to church. And then once I got past that, I'm like, I don't need church anyway.
So Mike,
how it is? I don't.
Right. How was the food?
I thought about this earlier today, actually.
Everybody has different stories about the food.
Some days it was good, like when Ma'am, so that's her nickname. When Kathy, Jim's wife, when she would cook, it was really good. She was a good cook, but when you're feeding 100 guys at the time, or I think we had like 89 or 99 or something when I got there, and then now they might have more than that, but at one point they had 100 and almost 200 kids there. So when you're feeding that many kids, some of the good parts of it's not like you're making gourmet food, but it was probably 50-50. 50% of the time it was great, it was good, and the other 50% it was not great. But I grew up with food insecurity. My folks like to use food as a weapon. So, and I still to this day have kind of some weirdness with food. So the fact that I got 3 meals a day and I was only denied food twice, and I'm not writing that off and saying that's okay. Well, it was only twice, but it was, it to me, with my background, it wasn't a big deal because I had gone through that before. But for some of the kids, that messed them up, because even though they might have run the streets and they might have been bad kids or whatever, their parents still took care of them and loved them very much and fed them and all that. And I think one of the most basic things you can do for your child is fucking feed them. So the food thing has always been a weirdness with me. I experienced it before I went, so when I experienced it there, it was not as bad, I guess. It wasn't like traumatic.
Right.
That already happened. But to answer your question, 50-50.
Okay. All right. I asked that question to everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Giving good food.
Because sometimes they serve slop. I remember when I went to lunch because I tell everybody this, I didn't go to any of the homes, but I did go to the school. That was I was from Corpus Christi, Texas, brother Lester Roloff's hometown. Yeah. So I went to that school there where the Rebecca home was. So, a lot of the times the food was garbage. Except there was this one, and I don't know if I just got used to it, but every Wednesday before service, they would feed you lima bean soup. And at first it was like, ugh. But then you just get used to it. You know, before you know it, you see the bowl line being soup, you're just scarfing it up. It's
Right. You get used to it. It's good. It starts tasting.
they didn't give us any salt or pepper or any type of condiments. You know what I mean? It was just the food
Straight
as
from-
is. Yeah.
I remember the one thing that you could win, and I remember David P. Won it. He was the only one that did it. If you could memorize, so every week for school, you had to memorize Bible verses. I think there was 5 Bible verses you had to memorize a week. So one for every day of the school week, basically. At the end of the week, you'd have to get a gold star on that part of your program. And if you filled out all your stars, you could have your free weekend. Other than work detail, you could go play basketball or work on paces or whatever. They didn't fuck with you. If you didn't get it, then you sat in school all weekend until you got them. But they did have this one reward that they would do, and if you can memorize Psalm 119, you would get free. It wasn't Lambert's; it was this little shake and hamburger place in Stockton. I cannot remember the name of it. Doesn't matter. Great hamburgers, great shakes, but if you're eating 50% shit, a hamburger and a shake and some fries, that's just like being home. But Psalms 119.
The longest chapter.
147 verses, I think, or something like that. And David P., he memorized it. He stood in front of the whole church and recited the entire fucking psalm. That was the only guy I ever saw do that. That was just a weird, like, speaking of food, that was like, and you got these agape bucks or something. I don't know if they do that anymore. But if you did 119, you got this big meal. If you saved up enough agape bucks for whatever, it's all fucking mind control anyway. But you got these little things that you thought were really cool at the time, but in reality, it's a $10 meal at the store. You know, you could just work at McDonald's and earn the money, and you know what I mean. It wasn't like, but to us, it felt like it was this great achievement. You know,
right? I mean, agape bucks. It might as well just been Chuck E. Cheese money. You know what I mean?
Right. And they were. I mean, they were just little. And I don't remember. I didn't have anybody say something. I don't remember. I think they were just like play money basically. And you saved them. You kept them in your Bible, and then you turn them in to get whatever you wanted, you know. I mean, not whatever you wanted, but if you wanted, there was like 2 or 3 things that you could buy with them. It's just weird, you know. I mean, it's indoctrination. It was just every day you had 30 minutes of Bible study, you know. So you'd get up in the morning, you'd go to the chow hall and you'd sit and you would read your Bible, and you'd have on your Dickies pants and your burgundy shirt or yellow shirt or whatever shirt color you were. Then you'd go back to the dorm, drop off your Bibles. Then you go to work detail. So at 7 in the morning, you're out there. Our work detail, I don't know what the new guys do, but we had buckets and rocks, and we picked up fucking rocks and carried buckets of them and threw them in the woods. That was. We cleared every fucking field that place has. And that's what we did all day Saturday. I mean, after breakfast and Bible reading and whatever, you went out and worked in the fields the whole day. Like, you came back for lunch and you went out again and you come back for dinner. And then you go shower and then you go to fucking chapel. And after chapel's done, then you go in the dorm and listen to your stupid dorm leader talk about God for another half hour, and then you go to bed. And then it's just, and all day long, I swear to, I don't know if anybody's mentioned this, the loudspeakers in this place, they used to have these loudspeakers up on poles. And all day long, they're playing old-time hymns. All day long, over and over and over and over. And so, no matter where you're at on the properties, fucking hymns going on all the time. So it was this consistent, the whole point was to wear you down as a dirty sinner and build you back up as this strong Christian conservative, basically. Yeah. And you know, who looks at women as being less than men. Who looks at children as being literally, you know, as long as you didn't abort them, you don't care about them after that. The kids were the kids. Stay out of the way, seen and not heard.
Right.
You go to church. I mean, Frank would stand up there, the pastor, and yell at the staff ladies in our church services and tell them that they weren't being good enough to their husbands and all this crap. And I'm like, what? Why are we listening to this? Like, it was just...
Because you were learning from example, basically.
Yeah.
This is how the women are being talked to, so we expect you, once you get out of here, we expect you to treat the women the same way. And the thing is, and for a lot of, and the thing is, for a lot of, like I said, I wasn't there, I'm just theorizing here. For a lot of guys, it broke them, and they basically followed. For some guys, it made them angry.
Yeah.
You know, so when they left,
Some of them.
yeah,
I mean, Griffey, I would say, is he was there. I was staff. He was a student. I'll get to why I became staff after bitching about the place for a half hour. But he got there after me. He's probably the most well-adjusted person from that school that I have dealt with. That is not still kind of indoctrinated or whatever. But so when I went there, I was there during probably the weirdest time in the school's history. So they didn't have much. They had the chow hall and the dining hall, the dining hall and the chapel, which were the same building.
okay,
They had built the school, which was just a bunch of trailers set up that they'd blown all the walls out of, connected it all together, and put a bunch of desks in. The kitchen was a separate building. You had to carry the food from the kitchen to the dining hall. So you'd go through and you'd walk outside. It was under these little coverings, and you'd walk it into the dining hall to eat. And you'd sit with all of your dorms would all sit together. And like I said, all the dorms were like individual cabins with bunk beds. So it was like going to fucking sleepaway camp, except shitty. And no adventure either. Just, you can't go anywhere. Nobody, can't be out of anybody's sight for a minute. So I went through and busted my ass and got my work done. And I graduated with a bunch of there's probably, I don't know, probably 13, 14, maybe 15 of us in the graduating class. So it was a big class, in terms of kids were there. And so as part of the graduation thing, once you were done with your paces and Frank had passed you through and said, okay, you're going to graduate, your parents would come and you'd stay off campus. You'd go stay in a hotel. Cool. Go stay in a hotel, watch TV, fucking eat regular food, be normal for a day. Listen to your parents tell you how fucking proud they are of you, and fuck you. I don't care. I'm going to be cool while you're here, but I don't care. This is your fault. I don't want to do this anymore. So we're out, and the next day, and this is in the 90s, right? So this is 98. This is June of 98. No cell phones, or very few. Nobody, my dad had one for work, and that was about it. Nobody had a cell phone. You didn't have 24-hour news all the time in Stockton, Missouri. But we pulled back up into the school the next day, and the motherfucker is burnt to the ground. Fucking dining hall's burnt to the ground. The chapel's burnt to the ground. The kitchen's burnt to the ground. They had just started building the new dorms, which I don't even think those new dorms at the time, I don't even think they use those anymore. But they had just started building those. The only thing it didn't touch was the fucking dorms. So Jim, the owner, comes to me after graduation and goes, look, we had to do graduation outside. It was a fucking mess. I mean, it was a mess. So I kind of felt bad. I'm like, fuck, the whole school just burnt down. This is terrible. So Jim comes to me and he goes, look, I need a couple of guys to stay and help because we don't have anywhere to put everybody. So we're going to have to be outside more. I need a couple of guys just to stay after you're graduated. Would you be a staff member and just help me out? I will pay for your college at Hyles-Anderson, which was the big Bible college that they were that were not affiliated with, but basically sucking that dick the whole time I was there because they wanted Hyles-Anderson to be connected.
Well, about that, it wasn't just the parents giving the $1,500 to $2,000 a month for you to be there. It was also the colleges and church members that were donating, so they were getting more. The parents were getting. They were raking in the money.
Because we had pastors come, because First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana was huge. I don't know if it is anymore. Jack Hyles has died. His son's in prison, I think, or his son-in-law, Jack Shop, or whatever. I think he's in prison.
It's where they need to be.
In the 90s, they were still a viable, large church. They just weren't televangelists. They weren't really on. They weren't a Joel Osteen or whatever. They were kind of hidden, but they were huge. And they had this Hyles-Anderson. So at the time, here I am, 900 services in, thinking God wants me to be a fucking pastor. So I said, okay, if you'll pay for me to go to Hyles-Anderson and get my theology degree so I can be a pastor, that solves two problems. It's a good look for your school because I went through the program and I graduated and became a man of God. And number two, it solves your issue of you don't have to really pay me. So they pay me $100 a month. That was my stipend. What the fuck am I supposed to do with that? $100 a month. I'm running a dorm. So I've got 30 fucking rugrats in my dorm that were just like me 2 weeks ago guys that I went to school with, guys that I fucked up in front of, guys that I was in fights with. Now I'm running their dorm. So that was a mess. There was,
Yeah.
and several of us stayed from that graduating class. See Mike and Alan and Eric and Adam, all these guys stuck around and helped out, right, or attempted to help out. And I just remember, I don't know why the school burnt down, but I always had a little bit. It was always weird to me. It's always like, it's just funny to me that it didn't happen any time else besides right before graduation, in that break between spring classes and summer break, where a lot of the kids might take a home visit, or they might work for the whole summer at the school, whatever the case. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
It just burned down, and never found out the reason why. Never saw the reports on any of it. All I know is if you look at that place today, it's huge.
Oh,
It's huge.
I've seen pictures. Yes.
So I'm not saying that it was fraudulent or the arson or anything like that, but I don't know why the fuck else that place would burn down. All the kids who had an issue with the school were off campus that night.
Right.
I was glad we stayed in a hotel. My parents almost left me at the school and just said, well, we don't want to fuck with it. Just stay there and we'll see you tomorrow. And I was like, no, I've earned this. No.
Yeah.
You take my ass to a hotel and you let me sleep in a real bed with a bunch of other guys jacking off in the bed next to me. I want to sleep in a quiet room for a night. I've earned that. And Dad's like, you know what? You have, so let's do it. So it was nice not to have been there.
Yeah.
But basically, I stayed another 6 months, and they got this huge Quonset hut set up over the basketball court, and that's where you'd eat. That's where you'd have school or work on stuff. That's where you would have church and chapel. And then I left, and basically I got fired. I got fired because we were stuck inside because it was raining, and there's literally nowhere else to go but the dorms. So we were huddled in the dorms for like 3 days. And we're watching all these appropriate pre-screened movies. Well, one of them wasn't so appropriate, wasn't so pre-screened, and I knew it. And I let it play anyway.
Oh.
And a couple little dinks in my dorm, went to Brian and a couple of the other senior staff, and they're like, "Hey, O'Brien's letting us watch this stuff, and we saw boobs, and that was the end of it." We got called to the office, and they said, "Well, you can either go back in a burgundy shirt and stay here for the rest of your year, and we'll look at paying for your college, or you can leave now." I said, "Fuck you, I'm out." Called my grandpa. I said, "Send me, put me on a Greyhound bus." They took me to Springfield, put my ass on a bus, and I went home.
Wise choice.
I mean,
Wise
at that point, like, you know what? Fuck. I mean, I'm not living my life like this. I tried to help out. It was Stockholm syndrome, honestly. I felt badly. I didn't do anything wrong, but I still felt responsible to help. That's part of that brainwashing. That's part of that. And of course, I mean, I'm not proud of this, but on the way home, before I got through the second bus stop, I was smoking a cigarette. I was making out with some girl I met on the Greyhound bus on the way back between St. Louis and Indianapolis. Fuck it. I didn't learn a thing there. I learned how to buckle down and get shit done. And that's the one thing I'll take out of there as a positive. Everything else was bullshit. I mean, nothing else made sense. Nothing else mattered. I just wanted out of there. And once I broke free, I truly broke free. And I get home I lived in Columbus at the time, and get home to Columbus, and my grandpa picks me up. My parents were out of town, and so I stayed with them. I'm 18 years old. I don't have a license. I don't have a job record or history. I mean, I worked at McDonald's or whatever when I was 14, but 15. I had nothing. I had no money. I had nowhere to go, and so they came and got me, and they're proud of me and whatever, and we hung out, and my parents get back in town, and Dad says, "We need to come on home. We need to talk about this." I said, "All right." And so I went home. Grandpa took me home, and I'm 18, getting a ride from my grandpa because I didn't have a license or a car, and come in, and Mom's like, "You've got 2 days." She goes, "It's Friday. You've got until Monday to figure out what you're doing, but you can't stay here. You got to get out."
Wow.
Well, that's how I ended up in the Marines. Called the recruiter, and I said, "When do you ship?" He goes, "Depends what you want to do. I'll ship you next week if you really want to go." You passed all our, I could pass the physical. Hadn't smoked in 2 years, really. Hadn't, had been working out. Had done lots and lots of push-ups. I was ready to go. So I'd done thousands of push-ups. So we, packed in, and off I went to the Marines. And that started this chain of events. Got married,
Right.
had a couple of kids. I got a kid who's 19 and a half years old, got another kid that's 16. I mean, it took me an awful long time to realize that a lot of my anxiety and a lot of my weird personality quirks and some of my belief systems are because of the boarding school. I attribute quite a bit of the negative part of me to that experience. I know I haven't made it sound terrible. Yeah, nobody fucking, sexually assaulted me while I was at the school, but I got my ass kicked a bunch. I learned how to fight in there. Great. Made the Marines easier.
I'm sure there was some sexual assault going on in there.
There's, when you put a bunch of kids that are, our youngest student at the time was 8 years old, a guy named Bradley. Brad, and anybody who was there anytime around where I was or even after remembers him. He was fucking 7 years old when he came to the school. He was 8 when I got there. He was 9 or 9.5 when I left.
Yeah.
And I wondered about him, and I actually looked him up on Facebook, and wow. But there's so it's a prison-like situation in the dorms. It's a prison-like atmosphere. Because the staff members, there was 1 to a dorm, so you had 4 dorms. Even though they were all connected, 4 different walls, the front ends were open, so all the staff beds were at the front, so you had equal access. There was only 2 doors. No, I'm sorry, there was 3. There's 1 in the middle, 2 on the sides. They're electronically locked every night. But if the staff members weren't really, if they didn't care, they didn't care.
Right.
When we were in the cabins, they would get together and go hang out over by the shower room. The 3 or 4 main dorm bosses that we had, and they'd leave, and the dorm was what it was.
Yeah.
If you got fucking, I remember even Ben telling us, he'd walk out, he goes, "You got 15 minutes to solve whatever it is you got to solve today," and he'd walk out, and it was just a free for all.
Yeah.
You pissed me off earlier in the day, great, I'm gonna beat the fuck out of you, and there's nothing anybody's gonna do for you tonight. You'll just suffer with it until the morning, and when you get up, you can go to to see the office and, boo-hoo to ma'am that you got your ass kicked, and she'll put a Band-Aid on it until you get back to class. I mean, it's not necessarily places like this. It is the environment and it is the culture, but it is not everybody. It's when people are given an out so that they don't have to be responsible for it, that's when the real shit happens.
Yeah.
Because if I can step out of here and I don't have to hear about it and it's not my fault, then I'm walking and you do whatever you want. Things had changed a little bit by the time I was staff, but yeah, there was some shit that happened. You walked in on some shit that you're like, you know what? Nope, I'm good. And what do? I go kick that kid's ass, and then I end up on the wall. I'll stand with my nose on the wall for the next 2 months. I'll do my schoolwork sitting in a chair, staring at the wall. I eat my food staring at the wall. The only time I get off, I'm supposed to go to bed, go to shower, and go to church. And that was it. So you mitigated your actions based upon what you knew was going to happen if you didn't. So you see fucked up shit go down, and you don't really have... And at 15 or 16 years old, you shouldn't be required to have to change those situations. You shouldn't be in that position. That's right. An adult's position. You are in charge of us. Our parents fucking pay you to stay here. Pay you for us to stay here. The least you can do is your job. And a lot of them did not. And that place has had people come and go. I know a couple that came in, they worked there, they left, they tried to start their own fucking indoctrination center. Either they fell apart financially or they got in trouble for abuse or a little bit of both. The reason I'm saying anything now is after I left, I'm on this page on Facebook and I read through the stuff and I interact a little bit and all that. But I see these kids talking about shit as was a couple of years ago, and I'm like, you know what, guys? Me being a 40-year-old fucking jaded prick, I don't really, whatever. People aren't getting assaulted constantly. Staff members aren't beating on kids anymore. I mean, yeah, they're taking them down, but it's not like it was. So I've kind of become a little bit jaded to that, and I started thinking, okay, well, this isn't really a big deal. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's calmed down. But then I hear that Brian's back.
Oh.
Brian's back. Fuck Brian. I hope you're watching this. Fuck you, you fucking prick. Come fucking hit me with that elbow today and see what happens to you. Fuck him. He's back. He's a main instigator of bullshit at that school. And that's why I'm saying something now, because he made my life a living hell. He made a lot of other people's lives a living hell for the time we were there. And he's back.
And he's going to start making other people's lives a living hell.
And now that his dad's out of the picture, there's nobody there to stop him. And Frank is old. I can't believe Frank's still fucking alive. He's like 500 pounds. I can't believe the guy is still alive. So
that's the weird thing. When Lester Roloff had started these homes back in the late 50s, he was a big advocate of healthy living. Salads, very little meat. You know what I mean? All the stuff that would keep you healthy. And he keep hearing about all these people, 400 pounds, 500 pounds. Isn't that? I think that's gluttony, don't you think? I mean, there's
an awful lot of. If you truly want to look at it, and I was talking to my wife the other night, and I said, the thing I hate the most is hypocrisy. I can't stand a hypocrite, and I can't stand someone who it's a lie. It's not. When you say it anyway, and you try to rationalize it. I hate that. But a hypocrite most of all. You can't stand up there and preach the Bible to me, and you're 450 pounds, and you're a dick. You're not a good person. You're literally, your job is, your pleasure is to hurt other people. They did corporal punishment, at least when I was there. I don't know if they do it anymore, but they'd have the paddle, and they fucking had holes drilled in it. The whole point of it was to create as much pain as possible. That was the point, without leaving any marks.
Right.
That's why they use takedown and restraint techniques and all that stuff. That was going on back in the 90s. But a lot of these guys, you look at them, and then you'd find out what they were like when they went in their little staff trailers at night, because they had little staff trailers everywhere all around the place. And you could tell who was who by their trailer. Frank had a nice trailer. Anybody one of the Clemenson daughters was married to, they had a nice trailer. If you're one of the outsiders, like David from Canada, he had a shit trailer because he wasn't there with the family. He wasn't one of the originals. He'd come in later. He had a shit trailer. It's all about staging, and it's all about hierarchies. And what I've noticed over the course of life, when you have hierarchies, you have abuse. Because hierarchies are based upon the predication that this level is better than you. This is your job to beat on this level, nicely or otherwise. It is their job, middle management, to beat on the general worker. It is the general worker's goal then to go home, beat on his wife. And it was his job to keep his kids in line with physical, restraint and things like that. So it's a very sick. They call it the program. It's a program. They program you with this.
Right.
So if guys leave and they don't actually have anything that refutes any of that, and they don't have any belief system that brushes this away and says, no, this is garbage, they end up being spouse abusers. They end up being child abusers, meaning they might hit their kids. Not anything worse than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These people, because they don't have anything else. I at least grew up, and I questioned a lot of things. So I was able to come out of that situation, and it fucked me up for several years. But after a while, I was able to pull back and start asking questions and going, wait, hold on. Why is this way? Let's look. Let's find out. And talking to some of the other guys I went to the school with, and they started realizing the same things. But being able to pull yourself out of that is not something that everybody can do.
Right.
And some people struggle really heavily with it. I have my days. I have something that triggers me from back then. I'll see something or hear something, and I go, oh, fuck, boarding school, But it doesn't fucking ruin my life anymore like it used to. And like it does for a lot of people. I see a lot of people who are really fucked up from this place. They've not recovered from it, and they may not recover.
And the thing is, I've been to the website, and it's very, very deceptive. Because you see the pictures, you got the kids petting horses, big smiles on their face, clean cut, nice clothes. That's a lie. You know, I don't know whose kids they got to do that, but you know, it's deception is what it is, deception.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. The whole idea, the King James version of the Bible is the only version that's accepted by God. Everything else is heresy. Women must wear dresses. We'll go look at some of the staff families now. Are they wearing fucking dresses? No, they're not. Okay, so things really set in stone, are they?
right,
This idea of the husband being the head of the family and the head of the discipline in the family. The whole thing is, I appreciate that I went and finished high school there. I'm appreciative that I learned how to get up before 10 o'clock in the morning and had some drive and some motivation. But again, I believe those things would have happened naturally in my progression as growing into an adult. The rest of it is fucking horseshit. The rest of it's horseshit. It's poison. Children were abused in these places, guaranteed.
no doubt.
I was talking to a couple other guys, and I said, "Hey, I remember this specific thing happening. Do you remember that?" "Yeah, I do."
Yeah.
Okay, I was just making sure because it's been 25 years. I want to make sure that I'm not falsely remembering something, or you know how things are.
Right.
And no, that absolutely happened. I mean, I remember one of the guys, he got there the first night, he got the absolute snot beat out of him for no reason other than they just didn't like him. They didn't like his face, literally. That was it. But you don't talk to your parents for 3 months when you get there, so bruises go, you'll forget about it because they'll help you.
That should be a red flag right there. That should be a red flag. As they say, you can't talk to your son or your son for 3 months. That's a red flag right there.
Yeah, and you can't see him.
Right. They should have asked questions. Why? Why am I not able to see my son?
Right.
But a lot of
they'd always trust the program,
Yep.
the program.
Trust the program. Yep. That's how it goes.
Trust us to reprogram is what they should have said. And look, is every single fucking thing that happened at that school bad? No. But when you wrap it all in the same wrapper, even an abused child whose parents neglect and don't take care of them gets a good Christmas once in a while. Yeah. Or dad comes over and gives him a hug and says, "Hey, kid, I love you," before going off and getting drunk or high or whatever the fuck else they do when they usually hit them. Every sadist is nice once in a while. So you can say, well, okay, but they fed you. Yeah, okay, they were required to. They were being paid to do that.
Right.
There's a lot of they always give these places this shelter, like this circle of protection, where they say, well, but I really needed help with my kid. No, man up and be a fucking parent. My kid's 19 years old. Did he have to go to fucking boarding school? No, he didn't. He didn't have to, because when he fucked, I was there. I said, work, you'll wait. This is more important for me right now. We're going to fix this. What do you need from me? And let's get it done. Is my son perfect? No.
Right.
But he didn't go to fucking boarding school.
No, nobody's kids are perfect. And plus, you learned from Agape how not to treat your children.
Right. Well, before I had an aversion to corporal punishment. Now I have a severe aversion to it.
Right.
It's just it's words. You don't need to hit your fucking kids. Use your words. And if your belief system tells you that beating your children is how you have to teach them, you get another belief system.
Right. Roll off.
Some of this shit is just it's gross, man. It's sick, and it's generational. They pass this shit down.
Ugh. And like I said, started with Roloff. Roloff said, "Better a pink bottom than a black soul." That's it. That's how it all started, and then I guess
it's never a pink bottom. It's a black and bottom. My dad used to come after me with this. It wasn't I don't know what it was. It's probably I'd say it's probably a 1x2. My mom's favorite was dowel rods across the back of.
Ouch. Because
hit me in the ass. Well, no, it hurts less. If I hit you in the legs, it'll hurt more. Yeah, and it leaves fucking scars. The laying out pain should not be the main thing behind punishment. Punishment should help you make a positive change in your life, whatever you were doing wrong, lying, cheating, stealing, whatever. Right. But when it's just about pain, then look, the Marine Corps had they had discipline. Yeah, they would hurt you, but they would hurt you legally, and they were very, very specific about what could and could not happen in those squad bays. And that's the government, right? And the government is what it is, but when the government agencies, and you're in the Marine Corps, they own your ass. They own you. You sign a contract. You're of age. You're 18 or older. When you're in the boarding school, you're a minor.
Yeah, there you
Good?
go. Yeah, now you're good. Yeah, maybe just a connection. Go ahead.
So, it's just that constant, like, okay, Marine Corps, government, of age, they can't hit me. Or they can, but they'll be very careful about it. Boarding school, minor, they can hit me all they want, and nobody's going to say anything.
Right.
Because they read all your mail. You send out a mail, hey, Brian hit me. Nope, fuck, that's going in the trash can. Rewrite it. Incoming mail, they'd read it, take out the pictures of the family, check everything, make sure you're not getting any contraband or anything. I mean, it's just this invasion of privacy. It's just these two different. It's this reality that most people live with, and then there's the reality that guys that have been through this kind of system, that we look at the world differently. My privacy is incredibly important to me today. When I'm talking, I'm sit away from other people, so the back of the phone, not because I'm doing anything I shouldn't, but because I don't want anybody to have access to anything that I'm doing. I want to be able to choose. When you come from a situation where you have no control, you
Right.
learn to have the most control you can, and that can be bad too. Because then you impose that, and you're real controlling with your kids, or you're real controlling with your spouse. So, I mean, this leads to, for all the guys that have left that are 18, 19 years old, I fucking feel for you. Just deal with it. You'll get through it. Talk to some other people.
Therapy?
I don't know, man. It's fucked up. I mean, I've tried that. It works a little bit. Depends who you're talking to, but it's just you got to figure out you are not fucked up.
But yeah, I know what
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Therapy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends. So,
Right.
so it's just one of those things. It's a shot in the dark, basically. Either
Yeah.
you,
So yeah.
you either hit the mark or you don't.
And I would tell anybody out there who's, if somebody stumbles across this while looking at this school, you're the best teacher for your kids. And you're not perfect, so what? Neither am I. My kids aren't perfect. I wasn't a perfect parent, but as I'm now old enough to be able to tell somebody who's just graduating from the school or just getting out of this program that I have kids old enough, I have kids their age.
Right.
This is a generational thing. You've got people from their mid-40s all the way down to 18 years old that have been through this program in different iterations. And I would just tell them, you didn't fuck this up. It wasn't your choice. All you can do is do better moving forward and be your own person. As far as parents looking to send their kids to the school, do the work. Do the fucking work. If you can't handle it, that's not your kid's fault. That's your fault.
Right.
Because you can't handle your shit. I had a kid when I was 20? I had a kid when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
But I never gave that kid up for adoption. I never threw him on anybody else, and I certainly didn't send him off to fucking boarding school when he started smoking pot. Because he was smoking it with me. But
I mean, there's always. I wouldn't say Christian counseling. Go to a registered counselor with your kids. I mean, if you need help, don't, like you said, don't send them to a boarding school. Get counseling. Go with them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Make sure it's
find out what's wrong.
right.
If it's really pissing you off that bad and they're really doing that poorly, there is a reason why. It's not necessarily because they don't want to do a good job. It's because they're missing something, or they're being bullied, or they've got a learning disability. They may be dyslexic or slightly messed up with numbers. I mean, these things don't always show up when you go to the doctor's office,
Right.
Up every year. So,
Yeah.
the thing I would take away from this is, I, as a dad now, and somebody who probably in the next 5 to 10 years will be a fucking grandpa. That's a scary thought. Talk to your kids. If you need a break, get with your partner, get with your parents. Look, I need a fucking break from this kid for a little bit. I just need a weekend. So just take them, go fishing with them. I need a break. I'll come back. Everything's
Right.
cleared up. Take these things a day at a time, because your kids are worth more than you can imagine. They really are.
There's plenty of other options out there. Plenty of
Yeah.
other options out there. All right, Mike. This has been great, man. This has been great.
I appreciate it.
Yes, I
And I know
appreciate it as well.
I spit out a lot of information there, and I was never very good at following an outline, so I appreciate the conversation.
You're welcome. Stay on the line. I'm going to end the podcast. I want to chit chat with you real fast, okay?
Very good.
Okay. So, everybody, for the Hammer Podcast, I'm Jason. I want to thank Mike for being here and sharing his story with us. You take care of yourselves and you take care of each other, and we'll see you in the next podcast.